Concerned American Patriots for coming out. This is always one of the best events that I attend. You know, we attend a lot of events over the course of a campaign season. Last campaign season, I was here with you. I represented House District 7, 9 counties. So running in House District 5, actually, Danny, we're getting it off pretty good. This is good. We've only got 5 counties. It is a pleasure to be here with you tonight. It has been my honor to serve you the last 7 years in House District 7. When I came into the office, I certainly planned to finish my husband's term and go home. When I got over there, I think I surprised myself and I surprised everybody around me. I didn't go over there and sit in his seat and just finish that term. I got over there and earned a reputation as being one of the hardest working state representatives in Tallahassee. I have learned how to work with everyone involved. It's interesting. I had a meeting today with a group from Walton County, came into my office, and I brought in one of the state agencies. And that's one of the things that I've learned that I love to do the most, is when one of my constituents have issues, I can sit down with them, I can bring in concerned parties, usually state agencies, and say, all right, you know we can find a common ground. You know we can find a solution. And that has been one of the most important things that I have done and my office has done. I've got my he's on leave right now, but Carter Johnson is here with me. We take constituent service very seriously. That is important because we know, and I've told my staff, when somebody calls our office, they're usually at their wits' end. They need help. Take it seriously. Make sure that you make every call, turn every stone over, looking for a solution to their problem. We don't always get the answer they want, but it certainly isn't for the lack of effort. It's important in the legislature to know that you have 120 House members. And in South Florida, you have a member on every block. I had a colleague tell me one time, you know, I can stand on one corner and I can look just a little ways down the road and I can see the end of my district. And I just kind of put my fingers in my ear because I went, okay, it takes me about 3.5 hours to drive mine. So I know what it is to travel a district and to get out and to learn. I see familiar faces and friendly faces. We've worked hard on some issues over the years, haven't we? Yes, sir, we have. It is important, folks, that you know in Tallahassee you have to have a strong voice. You have to have someone that can get in there and say, you know what, we passed bad legislation, let's get it changed. A couple of years ago, we passed a bill that I voted against, but without my approval, it went on through. And it mandated that everyone have septic tanks inspected every 5 years. Didn't matter if you needed it or not. And I told them, I said, now folks, I don't know how you do things every place else, but in the Panhandle, if we have a bad septic tank, we get it fixed. And if we don't, our neighbors are going to let us know. And that's how we operate. With that, I set out on a mission. I was campaigning 2 years ago, and that was the most common talked about item on anyone's agenda was, don't come on my property. I remember sitting in this very room having people tell me, I will meet you, I will meet any state employee at the corner of my yard, and that will not happen. And I took that message back to Tallahassee. And I'm telling you that because that is the way I have operated over the last 7 years. I've listened to my constituents, I've taken their concerns back to Tallahassee, and I have fought hard. I have become a voice for rural communities. It's interesting, we can sit down and talk about issues, and I'll look around and my colleagues will start looking at different things, and I'll say, wait a minute, and they go, yeah, we know, Marty, you're rural communities. And I said, absolutely, absolutely, because what we do in Tallahassee affects rural communities differently. And I have been that strong voice in Tallahassee for the rural communities. It's been an honor. I've had coastal areas, I've had inland areas, I've had some urban areas, but I've had more rural areas than anything else. And it has been very important for our communities, for me to stand up and be counted for what we believe in, for the values that we hold dearly, and for the life that we love so much right here. It's been an honor. I appreciate your time. Thank you for being concerned and taking time to come out and get to know your candidates. Thank you for having us.
Good evening. My name is Danny Glidewell, and I'm from Funiac Springs, Florida. I'm a retired law enforcement officer. I have a BS degree from Troy State University. And the reason that I'm running is because I believe that politics should not be about personalities and should not be about who's got the most money or who's got the most power, but politics should really be about ideas and principles. And I believe that the people that are representing us in Tallahassee have abandoned our principles and our ideals, and that we need to return to some conservative, small government ideals and principles. It's strange to me that people can say that they're against tax increases and they're against taxes, but yet they can vote to raise the fees that you and I pay for our tags and our titles and our fishing licenses, our hunting licenses, all sorts of things. Those things in the last 4 years have went up 100%. And if you say that you're against tax increases, you can't say that you're voting for that kind of stuff, because let me tell you folks, if it's increasing the revenue of the government and it's taking money out of my pockets, it's a tax. I don't care what.
Amen.
And we need to get somebody in Tallahassee who understands that we cannot afford, that people who are on fixed incomes, that people who are elderly, that young people who are just starting out cannot afford to pay what they're asking us to pay. I had a person tell me in the Funiac this morning that they went and got a tag for their truck, for a gooseneck trailer, for another trailer, and got their CDL license renewed, and it was over $450. For a lot of the people in the 5th District, that's a week's pay. That's crazy. We need somebody to go over there and stand up for us, that we're not going to take that anymore. I don't care what Miami says, and I don't care what Orlando says, because I'm not asking to represent them people. I'm asking to represent you. And that's what I want to do, is go to Tallahassee and say that the people of the 5th District do not want this. And we want to have change in our government. I think that it's hard that you can say that you're devoted to education when you pass laws that say that we're going to take control of the school district away from the local elected school board, people that you see every day in Walmart, people that you see every day in your ordinary lives, and that you elect. You put those people in office, and those people are the power has been taken away from them to run your school districts to a large extent and given to some bureaucrat in Tallahassee. I don't know about you. If you agree with some bureaucrat in Tallahassee running education in Jackson County, then I would suggest you not vote for me, because I don't believe that. I believe in limited government and government closest to the people. And the people need to have control of their local school district. It has got to the extent they passed a law called the Student Success Act that makes the evaluation of your teachers based on a formula that's about that long on a sheet of 8 by 11 paper. People who are algebra teachers in college cannot work it. You can't print it on your computer because the symbols are not there to print it on your computer. That is insane. The local principals, the local superintendent, the local school board knows how to evaluate your teachers. And more than that, the parents. If you got a child in school and you're a parent and you're involved in your child's education, you know if that child is being taught correctly, and you know if that teacher's doing the right thing. And we need to have people in Tallahassee who understand that education should be controlled by local people, not by bureaucrats in Tallahassee. And another thing is, it was talked about fairness a while ago by Mr. Appleman and Mr., I believe his name was Wilson. Fairness is important. We need to have servants in Tallahassee, not dictators. We need to have people who understand that service is what it's about. I've been in public service most of my life, and I didn't get in public service to make money, because Lord knows I didn't make any. I didn't get into public service because I was trying to do anything, but I wanted to serve my fellow man, and that's why I was a deputy for all those years. That's why I'm running for this office, because people in Tallahassee should understand that they are not our gods. They are servants who are sent there to serve you and I. They are sent there to be servants of the people, and they are not above you and I. They passed a law in this last term that said that every state employee, everyone, would be drug tested, would submit to random drug testing. Where I worked all my life, we were subject to random drug testing the whole time. I didn't think that was a very big deal. It's not a very big deal until you read the fine print. It was everybody was subject to that except the legislators, the governor, and the executive officers. And that's wrong. If it's right for them, it's right for me. And if I voted for such a thing, I would be the first one in line to get drug tested because that's the way it should be. I don't want to be your dictator. I want to be your servant, and I want to be the voice in Tallahassee for you instead of the voice for the governor or whoever else is over there. I don't care about them. I care about you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Coley, you want to take that without even a question?
Gladly. And I agree with you. I agree with you on one part. I would be the first in line. I'd pay for my own drug test because I think everyone, if they are getting money from the state in any way, should be willing to be drug tested. Our state dollars should not go in any way to help someone obtain drugs. There was a constitutionality, and where's our experts on the constitutional? Our state constitution, for some reason, prohibits elected officials. So it wasn't our choice. And we all stood up and said, you know what? We'll be the first in line. We'll be drug tested. I will be happy to. I think we should. But I will also tell you that we fought hard to make it where to receive welfare, to receive a state employee check, you should be willing to be drug tested. It's an issue in the workplace. We need to make sure we're doing our part.
Okay, thank you. Start with you, Mr. Glidewell. For house scanners, I recently paid $160 for a two-wheel trailer. When I went for the courthouse for a tag, it cost $72.40 to walk out of the door. What do you think of this tax?
I think it's our answer to that.
I don't think a whole lot of it. I believe Mr. Harrison may have that tag right there if you don't believe that that's the case. And folks, that is ridiculous. A farmer. Now, I've lived up in the woods all my life, and I've got relatives who own a lot of farm equipment. I've got there's a lot of people who are relatives who are in those line of work, and you got a gooseneck trailer out there that you might use 3 times in a year on a farm, and you're having to pay $75 to get a tag for that thing, and that's just it's not right. And there was no provision made for rural people, and somebody needs to stand up for rural people and say, that's wrong. That's absolutely wrong to have to pay $75 for a $160 trailer a year.
All right, so we can expect to see that changed if either of you are elected to Tallahassee?
I'm not saying, I'm not arrogant enough to say I can change anything. All I'm saying is, I will go over there and fight them about it.
Do I get to respond?
Wait.
I do?
Go, yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Yes, I have heard tags, fees, increases. It is a tax. It is what it is. When we passed that law, we were facing a $4.5 billion shortfall. We call it a tax. It was a user fee, which, semantics. One word defined another way, whatever. But to be able to continue providing the services that you expect, those offices had to have sufficient revenue. We did not raise property taxes. We did not raise any other taxes. But the cost of doing business went up. Those fees had not been raised in 20 years. That's not an answer that anybody wants to hear, and I understand that. I agree. One thing that Mr. Glidewell will have to acknowledge is you have to be willing to make tough choices. That was not a popular choice. It was one that I would love to change. I've changed the septic tank. Now we'll work on that.
Yep. 30 seconds.
Well, first of all, it is a tax. It is a tax. If it's taken out of your pocket, it's a tax. And second of all, we need to remember that everything that they're doing while they're raising those fees, they're cutting our services because they're closing driver's license bureaus all over the state,
Yes, they
while
are.
they're and at the same time raising your driver's license fees and making it more difficult for you to go get a driver's license because you have to have 14 forms
Amen.
to go in the door to get one. So it is a tax and it is wrong. They are cutting services, and the offices that collect those services are getting no more money than they ever did. That money is going to Tallahassee, and folks, Tallahassee does not have a revenue problem. Tallahassee has a spending problem, and spending
Amen.
needs to be cut before they raise their taxes.
Okay. Ms. Coley, I believe it's your turn to start this one. My home insurance bill just came, and it is an increase of $2,000. With over 300 of that going to a state fund for people who build in places that shouldn't be building because they can't get insurance. I want to know what the freak they're going to do in Tallahassee because I'm retired.
And Florida has no business being in the insurance business.
Amen.
Before I came into office, Citizens Insurance was established, supposedly as a carrier of last resort. Unfortunately, it has become the carrier that has more policies than any other company. We had a bill this last session that would have begun, actually 2 sessions ago. We made more changes this year. Each year, it dies, unfortunately, in the Senate. But we have tried in the House for 2 years in a row, and we're continuing to work on that, where we are phasing out. We've got to get out of the insurance business. There is no reason that the inland citizens should be paying for their coastal communities. Absolutely, and we have worked for 2 years in a row, gotten it in the House, it's failed in the Senate. Don Gates has made public over in Walton County, that was going to be on his top agenda as Senate President, so hopefully we can get it done.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to address that or go to another question?
I'd like to address that. I agree that the state should not be in the insurance business, and I agree that we need to radically change that people who live on the inland side of Florida, people who live along the state line instead of along the coastline should not have to pay for people who live on the coastline. Those folks generally have a lot more money than me and you got. So that's the truth. There was a gentleman that represented the 5th District a few years ago by the name of Don Brown who stood up against the party about Citizens Insurance Corporation, and for that he was blackballed. He was stripped of his chairmanship, and he was pretty much cast into outer darkness. The party needs to realize that we are not monolithic, that there is room for different views without having to give up your party chairmanship or give up your parking place or any other moronic thing like that. And we need to have people who will stand up to those folks in Tallahassee and say, I'm going to be for what's best for my district no matter what. You can do what you want to me, I don't care. But I'm going to stand up for what's right.
Okay. Mr. Glidewell, this question is for you. I understand you oppose privatization of the prisons. How does that reconcile with conservative values?
Well, first of all, I believe that taking someone's liberty, that taking someone's ability to move in the way they want to is the most important thing that the government can do to you and I. It's the most drastic thing other than taking our life that the government can do. And I don't believe any private citizen should have the right to take your liberty from you, even if you're convicted of a crime, that should be reserved to the state. The state has some very clear things that they're supposed to do. And taking care of our inmates is one of them. That's something that should be reserved to the state. But on a practical view, on a conservative view, if that's not conservative enough for you, I ran a jail in Walton County for almost 4 years. I know what it takes to run a jail, and I know what the prison is run on. And county jails generally have a lot more budgetary wiggle room than state prisons. State prisons are run very lean, and they are run very efficiently already. The only way that you can cut and make a profit as a private corporation running a prison is to cut salaries. And when you cut salaries, that sounds fine until you talk to your neighbor who works for the Department of Corrections, or your son or your daughter. And that's what will happen. If you privatize prisons, you will see salaries cut, because that's the only way they can make money.
Okay. This is a dual point question. I'm going to take it to you. Oh, go ahead. You need to respond. Make it fast.
Thank you. And we found a common ground. I have been very vocal and led a charge of let's don't privatize our public safety. Public safety is an oversight. That is one of the things that has been mandated to the government. What we can do is we can run our institutions, our prisons more efficiently. We can privatize some of the services. I have fought hard for our state employees, but it is important too to know a private company does not dictate whether someone is sentenced or not. That goes through the judicial system. Privatization, the safety and security of our communities is a government oversight. That we agree on.
Okay. Next question. How do you feel about Race to the Top? And please explain why you voted to attach teacher evaluation to FCAT. Ms. Coley.
Thank you. And it is not strictly adhered to the FCAT. We need to make sure that that is clear. Teacher evaluation based on performance, based on where a teacher gets a student, where he is when she gets him, where he is or where she is when that student leaves. When you look at teacher performance, there was a measure put in place that said we're going to look at the learning gains, not on an end result, not on one test. We're going to look at the learning gains. Where is the student when I get him? Where is he when he leaves me? Has he experienced growth? That is 50% of a teacher's evaluation. The other 50% is decided on by the district, by the principals, by their school board. Those evaluations include a lot of components. There are so many. I've been in the classroom. There are so many components that a teacher absolutely has no control over. And those things have to be taken into consideration. But we must, if we're holding our students accountable, if we're holding them accountable, then our teachers must also show that they are helping them experience growth. Our students are not just competing with their neighbors, they're competing with everyone from here to other countries. It is a very large market that they face.
Make it quick, because we got a couple more questions here we've got to get through.
Teachers should be evaluated just like everybody else should be evaluated. I was evaluated on my job the entire time I worked. I know most of y'all are as well. My problem is not that teachers are evaluated. My problem is that Tallahassee is dictating to the local school district that teachers be evaluated a certain way. You, as citizens of Jackson County, should decide how Jackson County teachers are evaluated. Walton County, Washington County, Holmes County, Bay County, whoever, should be the same way. And when you say that 50% of that grade is based on, or that evaluation is based on FCAT scores, what you're saying is that teachers can be the best teacher that there is possible. And if, I hate to tell y'all, politics does enter into things, and if the principal might want to get rid of that teacher because he's a little vocal, we might send all the bad kids to his class. And guess what? He has a bad FCAT score, and guess what? He gets fired. That's wrong. You cannot tie anything absolutely to something like that. And the local people know best. And that's the difference in opinion is between Tallahassee knowing best and Marianna knowing best. And I would say Marianna knows best.
All right, we're running really short on time, so we're not going to get to ask all of them, but what are you specifically doing, or what will you specifically do to stop United Nations Agenda 21 takeover of the American sovereignty? And Mr. Glidewell, you start on this one.
Well, I think that all of us in this, or the vast majority of us in this room would agree that that is wrong. I believe that if you pay the taxes on a piece of property, that you should have the majority say in what happens with that piece of property, because that's yours. Nobody should be able to dictate to you totally. Now, I understand planning and all that stuff, but still, that's your property. There was a gentleman in Walton County that owns a piece of property on 331. I was told that the DOT came on his property, cut his fence, went on his property, and took down a sign because they said they had control of that roadway for 600 feet either way. That's wrong. Folks, we need to get back to somebody in Tallahassee saying no, that we will not implement this kind of stuff, that we are going to have home rule and that we're going to be in charge of our own property.
Thank you. Ms. Coley.
Thank you. Recently, Alabama passed a law. They were the first to pass a law that actually outlines how states can fight against Agenda 21. I have that legislation in my office. We've been reviewing it and researching it and making sure that it is strong enough. We have to be careful. There are so many treaties. 2 years ago, I passed a resolution sending it to Washington, asking them to not sign, not to support a child treaty, because basically what it did was it made us susceptible to the UN, just like we're looking at with property rights. I think I showed you by example how much I value property rights by leading the charge against the septic tank law. It is important for UN, the Agenda 21, that we say to them, our laws are sufficient. The law of the land here in Florida and the United States, that is what we will follow.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We've really run out of time. Really appreciate these guys being here. And I'm going to ask if all of those that are running for office would go back into the back room so that you're there, so you can shake hands with everybody as they walk through to solicit their votes for you. And I'm going to ask Pastor Cap if he will please close us in prayer.